Hello, my name's Nicholas Bailey and I'm a research fellow at the Lloyds Banking Group Centre for Responsible Business at Birmingham Business School. I'm also a professional actor. I just wanted to reflect in a brief moment on the first anniversary of the death of George Floyd. May he rest in peace. George Floyd was murdered outside a convenience store in Minneapolis a year ago today. I remember where I was. I remember what happened. I remember watching the video in disbelief. And only when it finished, after I was riveted to it, that I realized I was crying and shaking. And ever since then, I've been reflecting pretty much on a daily basis what it means to be Black in Western society today. The next question I had is, okay, so what can I do? What's my contribution going to be? How am I going to make sense of what I've seen and the resulting outpouring of outrage? And I looked very closely at what was happening around me. I looked at the demonstrations. I watched people from other communities and other races come forward and say, we want to know more. We want to know how. We are with Black people. And I began to see it as not just a Black issue. No issue of inequality is self-contained. Everything exists in context. And if one section of our community is living in fear and subjected to hatred and is feeling the psychological ill effects of daily aggression and subjugation, then none of us are free. So justice has to work for all of us, or it works for none of us. Now, from my perspective, I decided to study Black leadership, Black inclusion, how responsible leadership can be exhibited by organizations taking diversity and inclusion seriously within their candidate pipelines, but also within their institutions. We need to get beyond quotas and lip service. We need to get beyond data and beyond commissions, which negate the personal and lived experience of millions of people. We need to get to a point where we have the courage to accept that there is no perfection in this. We are just people, we are fallible. But we absolutely must decide what we're going to do about the way that society is. What sort of world we want to hand on to the next generation, who incidentally, I think, are going to do a fantastic job. It doesn't look as if they need our help. But while we're here, we need to stand to make a contribution that befits a legacy of community and social cohesion. We all fall together if one of us falls. We stand together if all of us stand. So what I wanted to say is that this is a longitudinal issue. It's incredibly complex, but we need to get back to the state of debate. We need to get back to a point where we can disagree with respect. We saw it in Brexit. We've seen it throughout different elements of the COVID crisis. We've seen it over the Black Lives Matter movement and Capitol Hill and other seismic events that have taken place. There are people who quite frankly profit from our ignorance of each other, our fear, our need for validation outside of ourselves. We cannot feed those power structures. We cannot feed people that would have us apart. We have to protect what we evolved to do, which is to be together, be there for each other, and solve problems together, not just focus on problems. We need to get beyond a disagreement being taken as an affront. We need to get back to the true nature of respect. which is for somebody to be able to be their authentic selves without fear of reprisal, without fear of resentment, and without fear of death. George Floyd passed away, but he doesn't rest. I don't believe he's at rest. The best thing that we can do, and in George's memory, is to each of us take just a little bit of that responsibility to try and put together those tiny steps, which together will take us on a journey to a place where events like those that happened on May 25th, 2020 cannot happen, or certainly are very unlikely to happen. We need to empower ourselves by deciding that we're going to contribute to something bigger and more important than ourselves, which is our communities, the futures of the generations to come, and the systems that on which our society is built. This is my solemn hope. And as we reflect today on George Floyd, and I know it's on a continuum, we need to also recognize that we are human beings. Attempt to get beyond blame and shame to action, real action on reflection. And that reflection requires us to ask tough questions of ourselves and of each other. But we cannot stop. It's okay to disagree, but we cannot stop. We cannot fragment. We cannot sit. We cannot dismiss what's happening. And that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for listening.